Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has put us once again in a position that we don't like to be in, a position where we have to defend him because he spoke today at the UN General Assembly. As he does every year, he of course leaders are invited to speak there. He always takes the opportunity. He's a great uh, speaker. He knows how to give a good speech. This was not his best, but it was, of course, probably one of the better ones you'll hear in the General Assembly, which is not much of a compliment. Um, we're going to talk about that speech on the Daily Objective today. We are also keeping a close eye on what, of course, might be the bigger news of today, which is the attempt by Israel to target Hassan Nasrallah, he was targeted, but whether or not he's dead, we don't know yet. If we hear such news during the episode, I think that'll change the topic midway. If we hear that news later today, we might have a special episode of the Daily Objective later today. We'll see. Of course, we very much hope that this was successful. And I would say, even if it wasn't successful in killing Nasrallah, it was successful in that it was, like, from what I read, 6 buildings were taken down in the Dahia quarter in Beirut, which is all Hezbollah, and bad people died in this for sure. Whether the top bad guy died, that remains to be seen. James, I'm joined by James Valliant. You watched Netanyahu's speech. I when I was watching it, um, it was more. I was a bit more disappointed by and what I kept hearing was what he wasn't saying. And I'm not even saying in the sense that that he's not saying the things that we advocate for on this channel, because I know he's not going to say that, because he might agree with us, in principle, but is very what he does in practice is very different. But even if you're going to play that game of going out of your way to protect civilians, you're going to play that game of speaking in the UN, knowing it's a cesspool of anti-Western and anti-Semitic views. Uh, there's more that can be done to point it out. Now, he did point it out, and he pointed it out pretty well, but there is a lot more that can be done. I didn't like the way he spoke about Israel's Arab partners in peace and so on, knowing they despise Israel, and knowing that Saudi Arabia walked out of his speech while he was talking about peace with them. So yeah, that was my some of my initial takes on that speech. What are yours, James?
Well, as usual, it has brilliant rhetorical moments. Netanyahu, as you say, is really a marvelous speaker in some ways. There are some memorable takeaway moments. He called the United Nations a flat Earth society. He said it was a contemptuous farce. And yeah, well, but my point to the prime minister would be, if that's the case, sir, if in fact the UN is a contemptuous farce, which I fully agree it is the equivalent of a flat earth society that protects terrorists, which he implied, and it is, then what the hell were you doing even talking to them? Why are you there even sanctioning them? You know, in the last episode, I used a phrase that I think is very useful in understanding politics and history. Compared to what? But there comes a point where you've dropped off the point, we dropped off the cliff of true sanctioning of evil. And for fans of Ayn Rand who've read Atlas Shrugged, you know that the principle of the sanctioning of evil, is one of the central themes of her masterwork, Atlas Shrugged. And we seem to have no better example than a prime minister of Israel, the one civilized country in the area, standing up, morally denouncing the UN properly, but speaking to them, nonetheless, still giving them the sanction, still speaking to their original founding ideals as something noble. They are not. The inclusion of Russia and China and Iran make this organization fully corrupt, totally the flat earth society he says they are, the contemptuous farce that he says they are. But if that is all so, then why the hell were you there speaking at all, sir? Why are you still? And then, as you point out, of course, he's Saudi Arabia, as he talks about potential peace with Saudi Arabia. The cameras pan to the Saudi Arabia, where the Saudi delegation would have been. Did you see any officials from the Saudi government? Did you see any Saudi royals there? The seats were empty, empty, which kind of tells you something. And a lot of people will point out, and he will always point out that we had made peace with Morocco, United Arab Emirates. We were making peace with the Abraham Accords with several Arab nations. We wanted more. We wanted more. We wanted more. Did it work to prevent October 7th, sir? No, it did not. That peace, if anything, it is true, I grant you that that peace may have been stimulated. I've said this repeatedly as well. The fear that Iran has and all of their proxies in the area, they may well have definitely feared peace between Jerusalem and Mecca. I mean, that would be just a slap in the face of all of these Islamicists. And so that may have actually motivated them. But then when you see the Arab reaction, look at those empty chairs at the UN from Saudi Arabia itself. If they really were an authentic partner for genuine peace, a good faith negotiation partner, and what a dream Netanyahu has of this transportation pipeline straight through Saudi Arabia to India that bypasses Iran. He's got this dream. It's pie in the sky at this point. It does not help. It does not fix the situation. The situation will not be fixed until America does. Now, again, on the other hand, I have to have some sympathy, because how would America respond if he acted the way I did? The one ally Israel has. I mean, there is tremendous international pressure on Netanyahu, but when it comes to a clear moral principle like this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Netanyahu. You were sanctioning your own destroyers there just by speaking there.
Yeah. Yeah, that dream, is very nice. What is required is not just regime change in all the countries that would be involved other than Israel, but also cultural change, because any regime change that happens in a place like Saudi Arabia, the whatever replaces the current regime might not be better, very, very likely won't be better. That's not to say the regime shouldn't be replaced, but yeah, that's not going to happen. That's not the dream that he should have. The dream that he should have is one that he can actually act on, which is defeating the terrorists that Israel is surrounded by. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, could he be on his way to his goats? I'm pretty sure he's referring to Nasrallah there. This super chat is from a few minutes ago. And PC, thank you for another super chat. PC says, UN room was empty when he spoke. Yeah,
Pretty
it wasn't
much.
completely empty, but yeah, many countries walked out, and this is actually ties into something else that was said here in yeah, Deborah said his speech and Millet's were the best. I liked how Douglas Murray said the UN was disgusting because dictators are allowed to lecture true democratic countries. Yeah, I think we had an episode of a few months ago titled just that, the UN, where dictatorships lecture
Oh,
democracies,
the
and that's
speech right
not.
before the speech right before Netanyahu was the prime minister of Pakistan,
Yeah.
and the nonsense, crap, evil, disgusting stuff that came out of his mouth. I mean, that was the contrast I had. So of course Netanyahu is going to look great in that contrast,
Yeah, yeah.
but
And
not
by
good
the way,
enough. Think that Pakistan is right there giving the speech right before him.
and that's symbolic in so many ways. First of all, the Pakistani prime minister was talking about Islamophobia in the world, and all these terms that he knows he's appealing to the useful idiots in the West who allow him that stage in the first place. But yeah, the idea that this there's a general assembly and the prime minister of Pakistan talks, and then everybody walks out when the leader of the only free country in the Middle East that's defending itself against Islamic terrorism and is the front line of that war, that is a war against all the West, that people walk out when he's talking. That really tells you what the UN is. I don't know if I thanked Bonnie, but thank you for the super chat. And there's a point he said at some point, which is he referred to Mahmoud Abbas, the president of Palestine, as he is called in the UN, and he said that Israel should be kicked out of the UN. Now, That's an interesting thing, which, by the way, is I think that's it makes sense because to say Israel doesn't belong here, it doesn't share the values. That's true. The values of the UN are the values of totalitarian regimes around the world, and Israel and the United States and many other countries, not enough, but many don't belong there. So.
And you know
I
something?
would embrace that.
I would too. You know something? We should just allow the vote of the General Assembly on the exclusion of Israel. Just allow it to take place. And then when it gets to the Security Council, America can then make the big point of saying, well, if y'all don't want Israel, you obviously don't want us, and walk out. Now, of course, no American leader, and I don't care who gets elected in November, would have the backbone to do exactly that. But of course, that would get the American people, on the other hand, to understand what an evil organization the UN is. In the fuzzy heads of many Americans, the UN still stands for something idealistic, something that, back when 100 years ago, when Woodrow Wilson started the League of Nations, which couldn't prevent World War II, by the way, or the Holocaust, the Americans have had this pie in the sky notion that if we had an international organization where the great powers of the world could come together, we could somehow avoid war. Now, that is a very false image of the UN in the American people's minds. I don't think our policymakers have the balls to do the right thing if Israel's kicked out, but I bet you dollars to donuts that most Americans would then see the UN as the evil institution that it is. And there, Mr. Prime Minister of Pakistan, you are really risking America's membership, it seems to me, in the long run in the United Nations. Kick Israel out. Yeah, they don't belong in your evil dictatorship and terrorist sanctioning organization, promoting and protecting protection racket, as I've called it, for dictatorships. No, Israel, nor does America or Britain belong in such an organization. And if you want to alienate the American people from that organization, I invite you to kick Israel out. Most decent Americans would see the UN for what it is, the evil thing that it is, supporting nations like Pakistan and Iran over civilized nations like Israel and Britain and the United States. Yeah.
Soupy Cask asks, but weren't the Abraham Accords still good? I think not. I'm in a minority view here, but no. Even when they were signed, we did a show, we did an episode of the Daily Objective about that, and I was on it, which at the time was not a regular thing because I thought this point needs to be made. These are dictatorships. Any dealing you have with them legitimizes them. And even though, if you ask many people in the West, it is those countries legitimizing Israel. But no, these are not countries. The people in power there should not be in power. You know, and yeah, I don't think we should deal with them in any way. If anybody in those countries wants true freedom, then they should fight against the regime, and then let's have peace with the free countries, the free regimes that replace them. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says U.S. can block State of Palestine for membership. That's great, but yeah, the better thing is again to leave to form a united free nations and then of course block the State of Palestine and other dictatorships or wannabe dictatorships from membership. Yeah.
Any dictatorship should be excluded from any decent organization for peace. As Ayn Rand pointed out in her brilliant article, The Roots of War, which you can find in Capitalism, the Non-Ideal, the cause of war is dictatorship. The cause of war is dictatorship. Therefore, any international organization that claims to be for international peace must, in principle, exclude all dictatorships. If a nation has no respect for individual rights, it has no place in such an organization. And the organization has no long-term prospects for helping world peace, by the way. All you do is fester and foster the worst, most aggressive nations in the world. See how successful it's been with Iran? Oh, and by the way, these Abraham Accords, yeah, what is the position of the Saudis on what's going on in Gaza right now? Or what's going on in Lebanon right now? When they say we're recognized, great. for them to recognize, oh, yeah, wait a minute here. You mean you wanted Israel dead and non-existent before that? And so what we're doing is throwing a party because they say Israel has a right to exist? No, they're not a good faith partner. You know, it's true, my doubts about Saudi Arabia long predated 9/11, but in the wake of 9/11, in the wake of their murder of that journalist, Saudi Arabia is not a good faith partner here, and nor are they a good long-term ally. They just, they were on the verge of peace, we were told, with Israel. The minute this happens, not get this, October 7th happens. The minute that happens, they turn right around. So no, while the expansion of the Abraham Accords may have been part of the motive of these monsters in doing it, it did not prevent it from happening, nor did it turn Saudi Arabia into a good faith negotiation partner, did it?
Okay, I want to just update people just from what I'm seeing in the news right now. So, according to the Iranian news organization Tasnim and to Sky News in Arabic, um, they say that Hezbollah sources say that Hassan Nasrallah is in a safe place. Let's hope that is not true, but
Not
I
true.
mean, the 72 Virgins is a safe place, so maybe that's where he is. Um, yeah, and there's so yeah,
Very,
there are updates as they come in that we will share. And
that is
actually,
very
yeah,
unfortunate. I am looking forward to the day when I can celebrate the death of that monster. How many Israelis has he killed? Well, for that matter, he's killed Americans. How much blood is dripping off of Nasrallah's hands right now? Civilized people, innocent people's blood that is just dripping off that man's hands for years now, both Israeli and American. No, we want him dead. Dead is the only thing that will help here. And I've been looking forward to celebrating Nasrallah's death. No one in this world deserves it more richly than he. He's up there with Sinwar, in my view, who ought also to be meeting his 72 virgins.
yeah.
Not to mention the 50,000 strong Hezbollah army in Lebanon. As I say, the only proper outcome for them is to be dead, maimed, or fleeing the area.
Yeah, and again, killing their leadership is a big step towards victory. But yes, the foot soldiers need to be killed, and the weapons need to be put out of commission one way or another. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says I have disliked Islam since 9/11. Yeah, I mean, I think it should be disliked just generally as a religion. But if people after 9/11 don't acknowledge what Islam is and tell themselves and the world lies like Islam is a religion of peace, then yeah, then we get what we've been getting since then.
How
Let's
much
watch
do
a
we have to endure? How much do we have to endure? Another Nice bombing? I know they're from Algeria. Another Spanish train bombing? I know that was, I don't care what flavor of Islam they are. All of these Islamic monsters, all of this Islamicism needs to be addressed and addressed in principle as such. Militant Islam is our enemy, the enemy of civilization, the enemy of Israel, the enemy of the United States, and yes, my British friends, whether you know it or not, the enemy of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Yes.
let's watch a short video from the Dakhia quarter in Beirut. This is a very recent video.
هون ما مبين شيء هون.
Well,
I
that was
mean, yeah,
wonderful.
if he's in one of these buildings, he is no longer with us. But again, he has spent his life for the better part of the last few decades underground, according to everybody who is in the know. And again, it could very well be that this is these are not small rockets that were dropped there. These are big ass bombs. So yeah, it could be that underground as well. Ibrahim Akil was 2 stories underground, and that didn't save him. So yeah, let's look at that and be hopeful at least that he was there. That's the only question. Was he there? If he's there, if he was there, he's dead.
And at the very least, it looks like a command and control area was badly taken out by some serious munitions. Those reports I heard this morning from American media that serious munitions were used in this attack really show, you can see it there in the rubble. Hooray, hooray. I mean, Hezbollah command and control centers taken out with a bunch of bad guys. Let's all hope that Nasrallah was among them.
Yeah, although the updates coming in say otherwise.
Too bad.
A senior Hezbollah official or somebody close to Hezbollah says to Reuters that Nasrallah is alive. So yeah,
Well,
again,
I'll be a bit skeptical. They're not eager for this, obviously, to be made known. Another Israeli success, and look at all the dazzling Israeli successes in targeting. I mean, they can get Hanea and target him, this Hamas leader in Tehran, or they can do this amazing pager attack, really targeting Hezbollah. I am blown away by the skills. And so another successful attack on leadership, terrorist leadership, is not something they would advertise. So let's hope that they are, as so frequently they do, lying.
yeah, yeah. It's very likely that they're lying. But we should remember it's they're not as strict about just lying and never telling the truth about anything as Hamas is. We did hear that Ibrahim Akil died. We heard of others. We didn't need uh
But
basically
they, they
Israeli
quickly denied
intelligence.
killing those dozen kids on that football field, right?
Yeah.
Um, they first took credit, and then they said, "Oh, no, 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 no! It was children who died. We didn't do that."
Oh yeah.
Um,
I'm
which
not I'm
shows
not
that they're
claiming they're
very
honest,
politically
but I do think
sensitive, but they're
yeah.
perfectly capable of lying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's again hope that this is the case. Again, the only way they could actually know he's alive is if they know that he wasn't there at the time. Otherwise, if he somehow survived that,
I'm waiting for the
then
live pictures with a newspaper headline in front of him knowing the date. Okay.
uh, thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Sammy says the buildings around are still standing, and yeah, look, that again, that quarter of Beirut is a Hamas controlled area, a Hezbollah controlled area. It's it's their territory. Again, there might be innocent civilians there because they do like having innocent civilians around when they do their terrorist activities, but this is not an area that where anything should be spared. Flattening Dakhia quarter in Beirut is a necessary and good thing if Israel does that.
Very good thing. Very good thing. There are whole sections, and it's not just southern Lebanon, folks. There are sections of Beirut, whole sections of Lebanon that are entirely within the control of Hezbollah and filled with their Iranian supplied missiles. And just within the last day and a half, one of these Hezbollah missiles was headed straight for Tel Aviv. And now I hear there's a Houthi strike that was hit down too. They're aiming for Tel Aviv and Haifa, ladies and gentlemen. They're aiming at homes. We still have 60,000 Israelis displaced from their homes just in northern Israel. And when you add the others, more it could be more than 100,000 Israelis have been displaced by this war, ladies and gentlemen. Um, yeah, this guy richly deserves to die, and every one of his soldiers and affiliates in Lebanon, anywhere they can be found, should be dead. One of the disappointing things about Netanyahu's speech is, Jonathan Yon was a very good commentator on this channel, by the way. He said Hezbollah is Lebanon. That memo has not gotten through to Bibi Netanyahu yet, who said, we're not at, today in the speech, we're not at war with Lebanon, we're at war with Hezbollah. And if indeed the Lebanese government is sanctioning, as they have been all these years, Hezbollah, then Israel, guess what? They are a valid target for war. They are also your enemy. They are protecting these monsters who just killed those dozen kids on a football field, and they're destroying homes in northern Israel and aiming at Tel Aviv now. No, 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 no. Lebanon, you've been harboring these monsters this long. It is your fault. And frankly, if there are Druze and Christians that get killed in Lebanon, that's because, folks, you guys have been harboring these aggressive monsters. It's not Israel's fault.
Yeah, I also didn't like the message he sent to the people of Lebanon, because the message should have been something like, look, we are at war with Lebanon right now. If you are an individual in Lebanon who is against what is being done in your name, join us and stand up against Hezbollah. And by the way, I would definitely, in Gaza, I wouldn't spare anyone. In Lebanon, I would absolutely spare any village or town where we see what we saw, what was a couple of days ago, those videos of people kicking out Hezbollah from their village when Hezbollah wants to fire from them, or kicking out or not allowing in uh, refugees from the south because they know what southern Lebanon is. So yeah, in that sense, I think Israel could have allies and should cultivate that, just like it should cultivate potential allies in Iran, which Netanyahu also spoke about and said we could hit anywhere in Iran if we have to. Well, you have to. The
You
time has
have to.
come.
Yeah, and he does point out how brutal the Iranian regime is to their own people, to them, to these people to women who just show a little bit of hair who die in Iranian prisons, and hundreds of women who die protesting that, or the way they publicly execute gays. Netanyahu keeps making these points at his speeches, and the West is still deaf to it. But all the more reason to say we are at war with Lebanon. We are at war with Iran. Stop pussyfooting around. Stop making it half-assed. And I know Israel probably needs some support from America to be that bold, but it doesn't change the fact that Netanyahu's rhetoric doesn't need to sanction evil outright, which is in effect what he was doing. Now, it was in many ways a good speech. The UN is utterly corrupt, flat earth society level stupidity. They are a contemptuous farce if they include dictatorships and so forth. Then what the hell are you doing there talking to them at all, trying to appease them? That would be my point to the prime minister.
Well, while we talk about the UN being the cesspool that it is, in Hollywood, they also they also have their issues. An Emmy was awarded to a Palestinian propagandist for her short documentary on Al Jazeera. That will be the topic of the reality show. Again, hopefully, the topic of the reality show will change during the show when we hear about Nasrallah's death. If not, there is a lot to say about this documentary. So,
Television producers in Hollywood ought to be ashamed of themselves.
yeah,
They really ought to be. That's my only thought on that. It's despicable.
yeah. I mean, this was produced by Al Jazeera, but it
Well,
was
the award, the Emmys are given by the producers of television in
yeah,
America, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves.
yeah, yeah. I agree. And there's a lot known about this young woman that was known to the people in the Emmys. And but anyway, we're going to talk about it on the reality show. Thanks, James. Thanks everybody for watching. Join us on the reality show in a couple of minutes.
Be safe.